So, as we're beginning, I guess we could start with if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into music, and some of the biggest influence, both personal and musically, in your life.
Oh gosh, well, that's like 20 questions all round together, isn't it? So I got into music when I was a kid, basically, and I was doing a load of the sort of band stuff and choirs. I play saxophones, clarinets, and doing all the wind orchestra kind of things. And at some point when I was about maybe 16 years old, I started to compose. And I've got knocking around somewhere some of the extremely ridiculous music I wrote at that time. I wrote a symphony for wind orchestra, which was kind of completely serial piece. It's awful racket. But I was really pleased at the time, and I got the local county wind orchestra to play it. So there's a cassette knocking about somewhere. Um, and then I went off to the RNCM, the Royal Northern College of Music. I did a undergraduate degree in composition, and did the usual kind of undergraduate stuff. And then I basically stopped composing completely. I walked away from it. I did other things. I didn't have that confidence in my ability as a composer, I suppose, to try and make a career out of it. And I moved to Germany. I went into education, conducting, and arranging, electronic dance, music production, all kinds of things. And then just a few years ago, in around 2018 or so, I really got back into composing again. And it's like, right, I'm gonna make a go of this. I'm gonna compose some music. It's gonna be like my thing, and I'm just gonna keep pushing this boat until it sinks or floats, basically. And somehow, I'm not sure how, there's just been this enormous string of success since then, and people keep playing my music and commissioning me and giving me prizes and awards and stuff, and it just keeps going from strength to strength. I don't know what's going to come next. It's terribly exciting. So I guess like a lot of the things I've been doing kind of pop up in that music that I'm writing now, particularly all the stuff I did playing in jazz bands, of doing jazz arrangements, working, creating electronic dance music, certainly some of the educational stuff I've been doing, working with amateur groups and with youth groups and school and level ensembles and all the arranging for those. It's been like a sort of extended apprenticeship as a composer, I guess. And that familiarity with writing for the instruments and knowing what's going to work for different groups and how they're going to sound good, and getting stuff written very quickly when there's a deadline coming. It's been terribly useful.
So you mentioned there was this long period non-composing, and then you came back to composing, and everything's kind of popping off now. And I'm wondering if, and what I suspect is that this time off was very good for you, and in terms of like either personal development or other musical development, like learning things you do like or don't like. And so whenever you came back to it, you have all of these experiences and like this new lens about what you really wanted. And I'm wondering if you could speak about that a little more.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there was this whole period maybe where I was just trying to be normal and fit into society, and as well as this big kind of change of direction musically, it's been a big change of direction personally as well. I've basically become a completely new person in the last few years, as well as moving off in new directions. So I guess the two are related. And I think there's this psychological relationship maybe between this compositional block and this personality block, this repression. I mean, long periods of depression and mental illness and so on. So yeah, maybe sort of compositionally wise, I've been sitting on a volcano and trying to hold it in or something. But that's kind of been in my personal life as well. So I can't deny that there's probably some sort of underlying relationship. I don't know, maybe I should see a therapist.
Music is a good therapist,
Who
you
knows?
know? I want to re-echo something you said. You said the symphony that you wrote was serial? Like
Yeah.
you were 16, you wrote this serial piece. Could you tell us a little about the experience of writing that and then hearing it? And then also, is serialism still a big influence for you in your compositions?
Not really. I think as a teenager, I had this idea that that if I wanted to write modern music, I needed to be using the techniques of basically the 1930s and 1940s for some reason. That's what was being taught in schools and colleges as contemporary music, as new music. It's serialism. Yeah, we need to know about serialism, and yeah, so I did, and it seemed like a good plan at the time, and it just produced a fantastic dissonant barrage of noise for most of the piece, which was great. I really enjoyed it. And it's completely nothing to do with the way in which I write music now, which is all much more intuitive, rhythm-based, pulsating, dance-like, gesture-based. I tend to use small note sets rather than an entire chromatic series. I'm very happy with the idea of my music having a sense of not tonality, but the sense of a tonal hierarchy, and that there is like a note of which gives a natural resting point, that it sounds right. But I guess that's because I'm writing the music I hear in my head rather than following some sort of abstract plan. It's not mathematical music.
I also think that comes off really well in the piece that you've written for us, and the way that you combine um, that idea of like a tonal resting place with rhythm is also very interesting, because they both play into each other so well, and it's also just really fun to play.
Oh, thank you.
All right. That last question you brought up again, the serial piece, and you were talking about in your music education how there was a lot of trying to replicate the music of the 30s and 40s. I guess what I'm trying to get at is thinking about your own music education. What are some things that maybe you wish were taught a little differently, definitely, given how music functions in the present day?
Oh gosh, I'm actually really, really grateful for the music education I had, particularly at undergraduate level. It was very much focused on the techniques of composition and how sound works, and really the idea of making me think as a young composer about the sounds I was making. I had a very strict composition professor who would ask me to justify, like, why have you written a B flat there instead of a B natural? And he wouldn't accept for an answer something like, well, I thought it would sound good. I tried that one time and he basically slammed the table and said, well, I don't expect you to write anything that would sound bad on purpose. So like what was the logical reason for it being a B flat rather than a B natural? And he wanted something like, it's part of this tonal, or it's a flattened second going down onto an A natural, or it's a flat 7 in a mixed Lydian scale on C, or some kind of justification for writing that particular note and not another one, rather than just, I like the sound it makes. And it was very, very useful. It's like 4 years of really intensely thinking about how sounds were put together. Yeah, there certainly wasn't a pressure to write in a particular style when I was an undergraduate, but more of a pressure not to write in particular styles. So there was a little bit of, not necessarily from the faculty, but sort of generally among the sort of young composers' body, if you're writing in a very tonal way, or if you're writing in a very derivative way, or if it sounded like film music, then these are all things to avoid. Oh no, that sounds very commercial. I think that's changed a lot across the last 15 or 20 years. It's become more acceptable, I think, with serious composers to be engaging with the idea of music, which is not just academic or, so what's the word, cerebral music for the brain, but actually music that has a sense of pulse or rhythm or relates to the audience at a more primal level. Is kind of more acceptable. I think there was definitely an idea kind of hanging over maybe from the 70s or 80s when I was at college, that was still hanging around, that if you're writing for an audience, then you're doing it wrong. You should be writing the music for some kind of higher purpose. So this music isn't for people to listen to or dance to or enjoy. It should be an academic experience.
Yeah, and I definitely see that in some music theory Discord nowadays. Even it's at least the idea is preserved, but I definitely see us getting out of that idea of it should just be intellectual. How could we dance to music? Something that's been historically danced to. But yeah, that answers my question pretty well. I'll let one of the other guys ask something else. Nah.
So, kind of going off of that, what are some musical experiences that you've had in your life that have kind of changed the way you make music or create music?
I've had a lot of musical experiences. So some of them were listening experiences. I mean, one of the things I really think about music is that listening is like breathing in, and then composing is the breathing out. So there's this cyclic process. I tend to find I get really good ideas for new compositions when I'm at concerts, listening to other people's music. And recently, the last year or so, all these concerts and performances and things have been online. But actually, I get a lot sort of, I don't want to say inspiration, it's not the right word, but ideas come to me from listening to other musicians. And particularly composing at the moment, I find I'm very much responding to the sounds of the players. So for example, writing for Hypotenuse Trio, one of the things I did was listen to some of your stuff. I'm writing a piece for Steph Fry-Clark at the moment, so I listened to her recital she was broadcasting on Friday night, Thursday night, I don't know what day it is anymore. Picking like particular musical experiences is difficult because a lot of the music I'm writing is directly being influenced by the music that I'm hearing. I mean, I could pick a couple of sort of particular artists or recordings or concerts that I've been to that may be particularly significant, if you like.
Yeah, that would be very, I mean, I think it would give us another lens into either how you hear some things or some things that have affected.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of like specifics. So when I was maybe sort of late teens, early 20s, I listened to a performance of Bartok's opera, Bluebeard's Castle, I think. Bluebeard's Castle, Duke Bluebeard's Castle. I'm not sure what the exact title is, and which was really kind of astonishing piece. There's all this sort of murky chromatic modal things going on for a long time. And it's got this very episodic structure. I don't know if you know the opera. There's a series of doors which are opened in this castle, and then each one sheds a different light across the stage as the secrets are uncovered. But with the opening of each door, there's like music, there's different style of music. And I think it's the sixth door, maybe the fifth door opens, and it's just this enormous explosion of C major harmonies from organ and brass and timpani. And it's so kind of different to everything that's gone before. And it's one of those sounds that's just stuck in my head ever since. It's just like, out of this dissonant modal, atonal, polymodal murk that's preceded its blast of basically radiant C major. It's astonishing. It's very, very simple, and it's extremely effective. I mean, I don't think I write music which has big blasts of C major, but that contrast of suddenly something very simple is kind of something that's stuck with me. And then, of course, there's a whole load of albums sort of in the drum and bass world and producers I've been very influenced by. Going back a bit, there's a Dutch group, I think they're a Belgian duo called Noisia. Produced some fantastic work around sort of 2000s. A great record called Alpha Centauri, a song called Machine Gun, which is really good. very kind of, it's kind of drum and bass music you wouldn't dance to, but sit and listen to it, go, oh my God, the production on this is amazing, the sounds they've created. Um, it's just utterly astonishing. I can definitely recommend a listen.
So before we move to our more our lighter questions, do you have any like future projects coming up that you want to talk about, or anything in your life that you would like to give a shout out to?
Oh gosh, how long have you got?
However long you'd like.
um, I'm just full of projects at the moment. I've just finished writing my first kind of Hollywood film score. I mean, I've done some smaller film projects and documentary work and so on, but this is like an actual Hollywood short. I've just completed writing the soundtrack for that, which is, that's all done and paid for and dusted. That's just completed. So that's like being my latest thing, which is very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to actually seeing and hearing the completed cut in about a week's time or so, before it starts going around the various film festivals and so on. It's very exciting getting to the end of that and seeing my name in the credits. I've got an opera in rehearsal at the moment with Strange Trace Opera, who are based around Boston and New York. They're a great bunch of people. They're rehearsing my new opera about Goliath, which they commissioned from me. And so that's going to be part of a filmed opera festival. We're hoping to bring it to the stage at some point, but it's quite fun filming it because it means we can have all kinds of different locations as well. So that's a kind of retelling of the biblical Goliath story, but David and Goliath, but from the point of view of Goliath as the hero. He doesn't really want to be a soldier. He gets forced into this role unwillingly. And it's basically a sort of parable about the perils of war and the dangers of toxic masculinity. With a little sideways look at sort of, modern situations like the situation with Israel and Palestine. It's like, whose land is it anyway? Kind of thing. A little bit controversial maybe. That's great fun. Again, that's very kind of R&B, little bit of trap music influence. There's a blues number in it, and some nice modal stuff. It's all very singable, but very surprising music. What else have I got going? I'm writing an extended set of sort of dance pieces at the moment for tuba and electric guitar, for Steph Fry Clark, who's professor of tuba and euphonium at Tennessee University, East Tennessee. Is there such a thing? How many Tennessees do you have?
Well, in terms of university, there's probably any direction that you probably, yeah. It's a long, skinny state, so Eastern would make sense. Yeah.
There's so many American universities. It's crazy. I think there's probably more universities in America than there is in the rest of the world put together. It does feel like it sometimes. Oh gosh, what am I doing? There's this trio called Hypotenuse Trio, and I'm writing some music for them. I hear they're quite talented. I'm looking forward to writing some stuff for them. I'm doing a piece for the brass project as well in New York, called Angry Voices, which is a piece for the brass sextet and also like manipulated recordings of angry mobs, like Trump supporters and protesters and that kind of thing, all shouting and yelling. I've got some great clips. I'm just working on it. I'm trying not to make it too offensive. It's got to be like PG-13, sort of presentable. I think it's probably the way forward, which is a shame because some of the clips are really quite spectacular. We've got a few F-bombs and N-bombs in there. It's tempting, isn't it, just to go super shocking with it. But yeah, it's an exploration of kind of how divided society has become through musical sounds. Then I'm doing a couple of projects, like string quartet projects. There's one with the Villiers Quartet, which hopefully we're recording in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's all going along. Doing a master's degree at the same time.
Oh, that's so much. That is awesome.
I just need to be really busy. I don't know what's next after all that. There'll be something.
It makes me wonder, because I mean, you've got like movies, you've got like string quartets, you've got like tuba dance music. You've got like all of these different opera, like all of these different mediums. And I'm wondering how your process either is changed or not whenever you're trying to approach any of these different kinds of uses for music.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I basically either in one or two moods, which is very, very distracted and not getting anything done, or hyper focused, just blasting out a whole lot of music in rapid succession. Um, there's no middle ground. I don't have a kind of relaxed mode. Either I'm flapping around, not getting anything done, or I'm just absolutely hyper in the zone composing. And I think that flapping around, actually, I am doing composing all the time, just in my head, like when I'm off for a walk or deciding whether or not to get out of bed today. That kind of moment is actually, the composing's happening behind my ears. I just don't always know about it. I don't know. It just sometimes happens. I don't know where this music all comes from.
I also I like the idea of non-musical things being part of the process too, and I think that's also very important. Either that's like walking and hearing things, or going to a concert, or I don't know, cooking, any of those other kind of like life things that could somehow translate. I think that's really important.
Fab.
And since I mentioned food, what's some of your favorite foods? What do you like to eat? What do you like to cook?
Oh gosh, I love cooking kind of Indian influenced foods, so various curries and so on. Anything with sweet potatoes in, I love sweet potato. I like to mix like sweet and savory into the same food, so things of like rice and tomatoes, but also raisins or dates, like dried fruit. Raisins on a pizza are amazing. Banana on a pizza is amazing. It's just so good, that whole sweet and savory thing.
I've never heard of that
Potato
before.
wedges with strawberry jam, that kind of.
I'm now very hungry for both of these things. I want sweet and savory now.
It's good, isn't it?
Well, I haven't had like raisins on pizza, but I'm willing to try.
Raisins on pizza, and then with something kind of salty, some sort of pickles as well. If you're not having pickles on pizza, then why not?
I don't even think we can select that as a topping in most of the pizza places here. But there's a place back where I'm from in Ohio that actually makes pickle pizza. So that's what you would. So just pickles, cheese, and some raisins.
Yeah, and the tomato pizza sauce, and maybe some onions as well. Pine seeds, pine kernels are good on a pizza. Spinach. I don't eat any meat, so we've got to find our fun other places. Yeah, apparently my cooking is amazing and very well received. I don't know. I just cook what I like to eat, and everybody else seems to like it too.
It makes me think of all the different textures of food. And I don't know if I'm like making a stretch here, but maybe there's a relationship between some of the texture in food and some of like the rhythmic texture that you use in your music, or just like the variation of texture. I think is maybe something there.
I think in a lot of my music, I'm bringing together different traditions and different moods and different, stuff like, Arabic rhythms with drum and bass, for example, or medieval chants with free jazz. And maybe there's some of that in cooking as well, bringing together different flavors. Probably in my dress sense as well. I just like bringing together stuff that doesn't really, well, not that doesn't really go, but hasn't been brought together before. There's some great combinations available.
So, other than cooking and music, what are some things that you like to do in your spare time for fun?
I like the way you think I have spare time. I don't have a lot of spare time. When I have spare time, I do things with it normally, except for those times where I just am unable to do things, which unfortunately happens too often. I have days where I just feel I waste a day. I lie in bed, I sit on the sofa, I study the ceiling. It's very interesting. So yeah, when I do have spare time, it's quite rare. I mean, I do a lot of yoga, probably about 4 times a week. I'm really quite into that. It's very interesting because it just kind of, when I'm doing yoga, all I can think about is doing yoga. It clears away all the noise in my head. You know, you're just thinking about the particular position you're in. Sometimes I do music stuff in my spare time. So like, you know, I'll play the piano or the ukulele or sing songs or watch concerts. So I don't know if that counts as spare time, if it's just like an extension of the rest of the work. I'm doing a lot of teaching at the moment, you know, working on this master's as well. Yeah, spare time, hey? And to probably manage to watch a movie maybe once every couple of weeks or so. And there's a couple of TV shows that I really enjoy, probably far too much. And then once a fortnight, I'm actually the DM of a Dungeons and Dragons game online because I'm a colossal geek. Or is it a colossal nerd? I'm not sure which one you say.
I feel like getting older, I know so many more people that are involved in a campaign somewhere. And before I didn't know anyone, and now I know like at least, I want to say like 6 people, like 6 random friends have been like, yeah, I play. Like what? um, that's really cool though. What are some of these shows that you can't get enough of?
Oh, my most recent obsession, I suppose, is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. If you've not seen it on Netflix, then you really should. It is the gayest thing ever. It's amazing. Even the straight characters are actually gay. It's brilliant.
Love it. uh,
What else? What else have I been really enjoying recently? Also on Netflix, I was watching Umbrella Academy. I don't know if you've seen that one. I do enjoy a time traveling superhero show. What's not to love, with the amazing Elliot Page, of course. Yeah, I don't have enough time, I feel, to watch the shows I want to watch or read the books I want to watch. Read the books I want to watch, you know what I mean? I love reading. I've got thousands of books. I mean, I'll give you a quick flash. Have you seen his start of the bookshelves? You know, there's stacks of them. That's just like the ones in here. Loads and loads of those. So yeah, if I could have another like 4 or 5 hours each day, that'd be great. Somebody could cancel the whole need to sleep. I'd have more time to read books and watch movies, except I'd probably use it for writing music and looking for bargain clothes on eBay.
you had mentioned teaching also, and I wonder, like, what are some of the skills that you try to embed in your students? And are you teaching composition or instruments also, or?
Yes. I'm teaching composition. I teach piano as well, and I teach kind of general classroom music. I think the American equivalent would be like 8th grade up to 9th grade or something. I think, I'm not quite sure, sort of 11 up to 14-year-olds. Yeah, so I'm a bit of a busy bee, really. So yeah, what am I trying to teach them? What skills? I'm really interested in kind of opening the students' ears to new music and new sounds, rather than the kind of, you know, if left to their own devices, a lot of kids aren't particularly experimental with their musical choices. They stick to the music they already know or what their friends are listening to. And I guess that's kind of normal, unless somebody says, hey, have you heard this? It's like nothing you've ever heard before. They're not going to seek the stuff out and find it on their own, apart from a few sort of exceptional kids who are out there looking for new sounds. But we do live in a really interesting age, because we're kind of like all the music from all of history is kind of available at the click of a button, isn't it? So it's really interesting. I find kids were really into sort of bands from the 90s or the 60s or something. It's like that's amazing. Yeah, rather than Billie Eilish, they're listening to Nirvana. It's like these guys broke up 25 years ago. It's pretty mad. So one of the things I'm definitely like really interested in doing with the teaching is this sort of widening listening and opening your ears. And the other thing that I kind of push is this idea of thinking like a composer. So they're not just making sounds, but they're actually thinking about the sounds they're making and why they're making those sounds and what the reason for it is, and what they can do with those sounds. I mean, I see lots and lots of student compositions, and I see that they all do this kind of, there's the same sort of category of mistakes that keep coming up because they approach music in a very particular way, and I try and steer them away from those. Like, there's a kind of classic thing where they start writing a piece of music in bar one. They always start like they're writing an essay or something. It's like, well, actually, have you thought about thinking about where this piece of music is going before you just plow straight in at the beginning? I mean, they're all kind of very good at writing introductions, and then they don't know what they're actually introducing. They haven't thought about the main idea. And the other classic sort of student thing I'm always seeing, which I'm trying to steer them away from, is they don't do enough repetition. They always feel they have to create something new. Sometimes in every bar, continual stream of novelty, and they have these very disjointed pieces that don't hang together. So yeah, that's kind of like my main things I find myself teaching over and over again. Don't start at the beginning. If any of my students are watching this, that you've heard this 100 times from me, don't start in bar one and repeat your ideas. If it sounded good the first time, it will sound good the third time as well.
That's such an interesting thought that I just, even like in music theory classes, we had to, like, I'll say compose with quotes because it wasn't nearly as intensive, but like, had I thought about where I had to end up in my assignment, I think I would have benefited far more than just starting at the beginning. And I think even in practicing like an instrument, we can like benefit from the same idea. I've noticed in my own practice, the beginnings of pieces are a lot better than the ends of pieces for me because I think I start practicing there quite a bit, and so it just gets more attention. And then as a trumpet player, by the time I get to the end, I'm used to like not sounding as good. Whereas, I don't know, this idea that you have of like going outside of the expected, I don't, it's just fascinating, and I think it could be applied to so many different like walks of life and things that we do in our day. I don't have a question following that, but it just like really blew it blew my mind.
Well, yeah, I do the same with my piano students as well. I tell them to, when they're practicing, start by playing the difficult bits or start by practicing the endings. They've got something to work towards. But, I tell them 100 times, but they don't listen. They always start playing the piece in bar one, work their way through. So yeah, good beginnings.
Great. Oh, sorry, Chris.
I just had one more question. I've been really fascinated with geography over the quarantine, and I was thinking after the quarantine, if money wasn't an object or like time wasn't an object to worry about, where's someplace you really dream of visiting?
Oh gosh, I'd love to go back to Venice. I went there once it must be nearly 10 years ago now, and it's just so amazing. And actually, it's like really easy to get to from the UK. You can just hop on a plane. You can be there in like an hour and a half or so. It's just basically fly across France. It's there in northern Italy. And there's an airport where you land and you get off the plane and you get onto a boat and it takes you across the lagoon to the city. It's like a water taxi or water bus or something. It's the best way to arrive. So I'd love to go back there. Also, I'd love to go to Iceland. They've got glaciers and volcanoes and thermal springs, and like it's just geography gone crazy. It's like when God made it, it's like you don't expect people to live on this bit. It's just like a playground for volcanoes or something. I don't know. It's just like, it sounds like a really exciting place to go. I'd also like the idea of just like going off like somewhere like really, really bizarre, the sort of place that no one ever thinks of going, like Mongolia, say. And so, well, where did you go on your holidays for? I went to Mongolia. And we go, what? Where? Why? So, well, just to see. I mean, it's never in any of the tourist brochures or anything. Oh, great destination, Mongolia. Yeah, a friend of mine went there about, again, it must be 10 or 11 years ago. And they said they were on a hiking holiday in Mongolia. And they said it's just like completely flat grassland. You walk all day. And at the end of the day, you're still in the middle of a completely flat grassland. The mountains in the distance don't seem to have got any closer. And so, that actually sounds really interesting.
Yeah, that just really opens your mind's eye to what the rest of the world looks like, or just like, there's an Ohio out like north of China. Like,
yeah. I don't fancy going to like some super amazing beach destination, or the Bahamas or Disneyland or somewhere. No, thank you.
I agree. I think that's all just kind of overrated stuff. I'd rather see topography or just something different, like you were saying, something new. I've actually been to Venice myself too, and the water taxi is like the definitive, like you're going into Venice. Here I am. It's so real. So
it's great, isn't it? And the whole city is just made of history.
Exactly. I know. I would love to go back there too, and just in Italy in general. Great.
Yeah.
Lots of places.
And I kind of feel I've got to go soon because it's not going to be there much longer.
Yeah, yes, very good point there. Especially Venice is concerning with climate change. It's
always kind of just one big storm away from complete disaster.
Indeed, I forgot about that. Yeah, don't even think about that.
Well, now we're all going to be worrying about Venice.
Rhode Island, even. Mike might be stationed at Rhode Island.
All of Florida, all of like New York, like all of those places. Yeah. But also the Venice thing makes me think of, there's a Pokemon movie where they're in a very similar setting where there's like canals and everything, and then it gets flooded and it's all destroyed. And I'm like, wow, did Pokemon tell us?
Pokemon, real world stuff.
We could all move to Oklahoma.
We'll all move to the Rocky Mountains.
I would love mountains.
Yes. So I'm trying to see. I guess we could finish off with a nice, lighthearted question. I don't think we asked this. We've been asking it to everyone, and it's really important. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Oh,
absolutely.
Great. We love how quick that was. All three of us own cats, so we're very pleased.
I mean, the whole thing about cats is they come to you when they want to. They come on their own terms. And like dog is like, you're a dog's boss, basically. You tell it what to do and it obeys. Dogs have owners and cats have staff.
I never heard that. That's fantastic. Well, Flori, we so greatly appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
We appreciate the piece that you wrote for us, and we're so excited to record it. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing you play this piece.